Hello and welcome to Books to Last, the podcast that challenges readers to pick the only 5 books they may take with them when cast away to a mystery remote location. As ever, I'm joined by a book-loving guest, and this episode I'm joined by Brooklyn. Welcome, Brooklyn. It's so great to have you on the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I always love getting authors onto the podcast to talk about the books that they love to read, because I always find you get the most eclectic and interesting pick. It's always a really good time. So for the benefit of any listeners who may not be familiar with you and your work, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and books in general? Anything to do with books. We love it.
Yeah, so my name is Brooklyn Quintana. I am an author of a fantasy series, the Fynneas series. I actually was not a big reader until probably my late teens, early 20s, but I've always really enjoyed stories. And I think the book that I would say made me interested in writing more so, I guess, than reading was the Harry Potter books. My dad used to read them to me when I was a little kid because they were like just gaining popularity when I was in elementary school, and I could read them myself, but I enjoyed that time with my dad, and he would read it and then we would discuss the chapter together. And weirdly enough, we still do that, except now it's me sending him my chapters. And I'm like, what did you think? So yeah, I really enjoy fantasy series. Once we get talking about books, you're going to find out that I actually don't read a lot of fantasy myself. I just always go back to Harry Potter as my go-to. It's like a comfort, nostalgia, magic and whimsy type deal. But yeah, that was definitely what kicked off my love of magic and reading and escapism.
Great. I love the idea of I can't wait till I get to do sort of bedtime stories that are chapter books. But I feel like, especially if it was a book that I was reading for the first time, the cliffhanger of like the end of a chapter, but now it's time to go to bed, so we're shutting the story and you don't get to find out what happens next, must be really tough to deal with.
Yeah, it certainly irked me when I was younger. I was like, but what's going on? What are Snape and Filch up to? I need to know. And my dad's like, yeah, we'll get to it like tomorrow or something. And I was like, oh, okay, fine.
So, what do you mean we can't read the full 600-page book now?
Exactly.
That's great. I would love to hear a little bit more about the Phileas Fogg series, because like I remember when I read that originally, I find it a very intriguing sort of character from literature and literary sort of canon. So I'd be interested to hear a little bit more about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, the name is a hybrid combination of Phileas Fogg from Jules Verne, and which is spelled different, obviously. And then there was a bar. I live in Florida, and there was a bar that my mom and my godmom used to go to when they were young called Fynneas Fogg's. So I liked the combination. I've always been a big fan of the name Finn. But every time I go to like events and things, other authors will immediately be like Jules Verne. And I'm like, close. But yeah, it has inspiration from that name. And throughout the books, there's a bunch of characters who have names that are little literary nods to other authors or like famous book characters. There's a whole group of characters that are literally named Byron, Percy. One of them was Keats because it seemed like or his name is Keating, and it seemed like John Keats, and just saying Keats was going to be a bit too obvious.
Yeah.
So just cut it off a little bit. And then there's Beck for John Steinbeck. So there's a lot of little nods. There's characters named Jonathan and his brother Harker for Jonathan Harker from Dracula. So for like my literary buffs reading my book series, like, oh, cool. None of their names have anything to do with their personalities. It was just like a fun little, I have an English degree, so let's be that person.
Sorry, I think I love that even more than them being straight pulls from the characters. Oh yeah, no, this person is called Byron, but he is a devout married man who's completely loyal.
I thought it was just like a fun little thing because it's like the amount of people who are going to pick up on it are probably few and far between. But for me personally, when I'm writing it, it gives me a little giggle because I'm like, what's Ernest up to? And it's obviously I'm a big Hemingway fan. But the series itself is a kind of coming of age, chosen one flipped on its head, more of a harbinger of doom type of story with very quirky characters, dark sense of humor, and a tropical setting, despite the fact that it's in a medieval Gothic castle, because I thought that juxtaposition was just a fun way to set things. And it has a lot of inspiration from history, like surprisingly, not a lot of British history given the setting, but a lot of like Greek and Roman history, because that's where my interest lies, but the aesthetics of knights was just cooler to me. So it's a very interesting mashup of things, but the first 2 books are out and book 3 comes out this year.
Oh, it sounds like it makes me think of like a fantasy almost Terry Pratchett with the terms of it's just all of these different things and they're all together. And it's one of those things where your brain's like, it shouldn't work, but it does. And it's
Yeah.
like,
I'm a big Terry Pratchett fan also. I appreciate, like, I grew up with a lot of that witticism, British humor thing. Like, I loved Fawlty Towers, Monty Python, things like that, Blackadder. So I feel like it seeps into my writing a lot, that kind of dark,
yeah.
dry humor to things. And then there's also, like I said, there's a lot of literary references. There's also a lot of musical references. I love Pink Floyd. There's a straight up Pink Floyd The Wall reference in book 2. For anybody deep cut who wants to figure out what I'm talking about, go read book 2. It's wonderful. But like when my dad read it, he was like, so like the worms from the song. I'm like, exactly, like the worms from the song. Fun. Like they're talking worms. How cool is that?
I would love to be like a fly on the wall for like a conversation between your dad, because it seems like you're so obviously on the same level. You're just like, yeah, you get me, but we're on the same page. We understand all of the references.
Exactly. And then to everybody else, they're like, that is an interesting creative choice you've made. I'm like, yeah, why
I
not?
didn't make it.
And it's just, yeah, I grew up listening to that song. And weirdly enough, the song, The Trial by Pink Floyd, nobody likes it, I think. It's definitely not one of their more popular ones. It's my personal favorite and what I always requested when I was little. So it's just a nod to that as well. Like the things that I like are what are in my stories. So I hope that like other hot topic kids who have grown up will really gravitate towards this story.
Oh, I love that. I think that's the best writing. If you're writing about things that you enjoy, if you're just forcing yourself to write about things that are like because of reasons that you feel like for other people thinking, I think you've got to write for yourself really, because ultimately there's no fun in it otherwise.
Exactly. It makes writing it really hard if you don't like what you've written.
Yeah. I can imagine picking out all the references being really fun as well, because my husband and I are watching Supernatural for the first time, and he just gets a huge kick out because Dean uses the surnames of different people from famous rock bands for all of his like secret identities, and it'll always be there's 2 of them, so he'll pick 2 from the same band or something, and then every now and then a character in the show will get it, but most of them don't. And my husband really loves showing off his mad sort of rock trivia knowledge by knowing exactly who he's talking about just off the surnames and which band he's referencing.
I love it. Yeah, as a big rock and roll fan, I feel like that would be what I would like about Supernatural.
It's the main kick he gets out of it, but there's a good joke later on. There's a character who doesn't get pop culture references and he tries to do the same thing, but he calls himself as Detective Beyonce and Detective Z. It's like the stupidest joke ever, and it only works if you understand, basically, like all of the other references. If they've passed you by, it makes no sense.
I love it. I totally support music references and things.
Yes, and there should be more of them. But yeah, so it sounds like a really wild ride. It sounds like so much fun. I would love to know what kind of stories and books you read and enjoy that kind of incubates all of this like creative juices and stuff. Are you reading anything really good at the moment?
I'm currently reading Galapagos by Kurt Vonnegut. So I haven't gotten very far, but I do really enjoy Vonnegut's other stories. I think Breakfast of Champions was one of the first books that I, as an adult, read and really enjoyed. So like diving back in and remembering why I liked his like very matter-of-fact writing style has been a lot of fun.
Great. I can already tell that this is going to be a really interesting list. As mentioned before, you're going to pick 5 books to take with you to be cast away with. You can pick whatever remote location you want to be cast away to. You can go anywhere you want, as long as, I suppose, you're by yourself.
Okay.
What is the place that you would pick? It can be
Um,
fictional or real or completely made up in your own head. It can be anywhere.
wow. Okay, that is a loaded question. Nowhere in my own book, because I don't think it would be relaxing. I would love to be this, this is probably like the dumbest answer because I feel like everybody would say tropical island. I would like to be in like a massive cabin on the Lake of the Ozarks because I really like the trees and like the kind of chilliness of it, but you're still on the water and it'd be so cool. Like I said, I live in Florida. It'd be amazing to me to be able to go in the water and not be worried about alligators in the lake. So
That seems like a valid concern.
I think I'm going to go with, Lake of the Ozarks, big cabin set back in the forest. Big cabin just for me. I don't need anybody else there. Me, my books. Yeah, and that's what I'm going to go with. But like in the winter time, if we're going to be specific.
That sounds glorious to me, frankly, as someone who doesn't necessarily get on with heat very well and loves trees. So that sounds just wonderful and like
You
a
can come
great place
visit
to
my
read.
cabin. I feel
Absolutely.
like
I'm the
that
only
could
one
be
who's allowed to.
perfect.
So yeah, I am the proprietor of all of the places people get cast away to. I'm the only one who gets to visit. But yeah, sounds absolutely wonderful. I would love to know what is the first book you'd be taking with you to your cabin.
Great Gatsby.
Great. I love it. Straight shoot. Why Great Gatsby?
I don't know if I would necessarily say it's my favorite book, but it's a book I really enjoy. And if I have to pick a setting in time and place in America, 19 like 20s, 30s, New York seems like a fun, very interesting time period with the flappers and prohibition and everything, and just like the glitz and glam of up and coming New York. And I think the more you read it, the more you understand the perspectives of different characters. Like when I was in high school, I remember I wrote a full paper about really hating Daisy Buchanan. And then in college, I wrote the same paper, but I was like in defense of Daisy Buchanan. I feel like every stage of life you're at, you can see from a different perspective and sympathize and empathize with different characters. So I think that I just enjoy Fitzgerald's writing style because it's also not overly verbose. It's also very to the point, and but it still maintained like a beauty to it. It's not necessarily written in the vernacular, despite the fact that it's essentially being told by somebody. So I think it still maintains like a lot of figurative language that elevates it and makes it really beautiful to read, but it's not over the top like George R. R. Martin's writing where you're getting 10 pages of description of a cloak and then it's like, oh, plot's still going on. So yeah, Great Gatsby is my first choice.
That is a great first choice. I think that's probably the thing that kind of makes classics and not just old books is this sort of if you revisit them with different like at a different time in your life, it means something completely different to you, even though it's the same story, the same set of characters and the same events. I think having that sort of like universality and like translation is quite good. And Great Gatsby is one of the few American classics that I tend to get on with because I struggle with some of the sort of big American classics in terms of like their writing style, probably possibly the maybe some of the reasons I think it, but yeah, it's a great solid first choice for Great Gatsby. Are you a big fan of that specific kind of genre of classics? Because I feel like classics from different countries do have a different flavor, for want of a better word.
I like classics. I feel like if I reach for fiction that's not Harry Potter, I will normally pick up a classic that I've already read before, but I'm not like stuck on only reading American classics. Like I said, I have a degree in English literature, so I was forced for many years to read a lot of varying books from varying countries. I think I had talked about it in one of my other podcasts. I think I read too many books by British authors in my formative years that it very much seeps over into the way that I write, where I just, as if I'm a middle-aged English man half the time. And my editor was like, this isn't the American spelling of this word. And I was like, what do you mean? Have I been wrong my whole life? And she's like, yeah, this is the English spelling. I was like, we're going to roll with it. So I always imagine that my characters have English accents because that's what you do for fantasy. So it like fits that you just spell things occasionally English, occasionally not. And she's like, you got to stick to one version of this word. And it's like, oh, I didn't know. My bad.
I'm very much pro this because I prefer the English spelling to think, not just because I'm English, although probably because I'm English. It's just because I don't, it's what you're used to, I'm sure. But I don't know, when I see words with the U's taken out when there should be a U there, I'm like, it doesn't look right.
See, I feel like on nouns, except for the word gray, I always want to spell with an E, and I will always spell it with an E. But when it comes to nouns, I think, because I did grow up, obviously, in the US, I will spell it the American way. It's the verbs. The verbs, yeah, toward and towards, forward and forwards. Apparently, smelled and smelt. I vary up because I'm like, oh, he smelt it, or it smelled bad. And again, my editor's like, if you're going, you got to pick one version. It's the same word. I'm like, no, in my head, these are different
It's
things.
not that they've got different meaning.
Exactly. One is an active of smelling. One is you have smelt something. And she's, that's not how that works.
That's great. And yeah, fantasy English. I'm proud to be from the country of the accent of all fantasy characters everywhere.
inexplicable. There was like a whole joke about it by Pete Holmes where he's like, it's so strange that's our default for if there's aliens or fantasy realm, because it is an actual accent that people have. And we've just like assigned it to be, it's the fantasy accent. It's like people do talk this way. But like for us, we're like, yeah, Westeros, this is a different world. It's like, they like, just sound English.
Yeah, that's always my thing with Disney movies. Like, it's that the English accent denotes something very specific in like Disney movies because everybody else has American accent.
Yeah, if it's an English accent, they're royal or they're whimsical in some way.
Or a bad guy.
Or a bad, they make, Scar and Mufasa, they were brothers. Scar is inexplicably very English.
Yeah, very much that. I rewatched like How to Train Your Dragon recently, and it's one of my all-time favorite films. I absolutely adore it. It wasn't until my husband pointed out, it's like, why are all the other Vikings Scottish but the main characters are American? It doesn't make sense.
I think it's because it's like for primarily an American audience, because we have the biggest box office, and we're like, we need to be able to easily understand what Hiccup is saying to us. So we're like, it's obviously he's the American character.
Yeah. It's like, why did these two Scottish men raise an American son? Like, this just...
It's his way of rebelling. Changing the dialect completely is his teenage rebellion.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't know how we got here from Great Gatsby, but Great Gatsby is the first book. What is the second book you'll be taking with you?
Probably, I don't know if this counts or if it's like a cop-out answer. I'm going to say a complete collection of Edgar Allan Poe's short stories.
I feel like maybe, depending on the collection, maybe if it's not complete, maybe it's just most of them. What are some of your favorites?
Yeah, okay, so if we narrow it down, I'll give you the theoretical version of this book. I want Black Cat, El Dorado, The Pit and the Pendulum. If it was just those three, I'd be happy. Like, I don't need the rest of them.
Since they're short stories, I'm sure that's probably been collected somewhere by someone. I'm regrettably very uninformed about Edgar Allan Poe. These are prose short stories? Are they his usual spooky thing?
They're definitely spooky. I literally have another bookshelf over here that you can't see on camera. It's my
for the benefit of listeners, the bookshelves behind Brooklyn are amazing. I'm incredibly jealous of the room that she's in.
Thank you. My parents built them for me.
You have top tier parents.
I'm pretty fond of them. But yeah, I have another one for listeners. There's one behind me. There's also one to my right out of frame. It's another floor to ceiling one, but it's like just my collections of things. I have a whole shelf of just Poe. And in my mind, if I keep staring at it, I will remember if they're prose or if they're poems. But I think El Dorado is a poem. Pit and the Pendulum is, I cannot remember. I want to say a poetic short story is a cop-out answer, so I'm going to go with that. But I think Pit and the Pendulum is probably my favorite Edgar Allan Poe, whatever we want to classify it as, because it's just like delightfully weird, because like, why is the man in the pit? We never get that answer. And I really appreciate Poe's prose and his word choice and kind of the atmosphere and aesthetic he sets, because there's really inspirational for how I personally write, and then the kind of stories that I would go on to enjoy when I do pick up fiction. So I think that, and my grandma was a big Poe fan, so maybe that kind of infiltrated my brain and made me skew towards dark, weird things. But Poe is he's a big inspiration. I think he's a really fun writer to read. And I think as a person, he was also delightfully weird when you read his biography, and just like a very colorful character. And I think it definitely bleeds over into his work. So I'm going to go with Poe as a second choice.
It's a thing. I feel like as soon as I asked the question, I was like, I feel like I'm trying to put Edgar Allan Poe in a box that he doesn't really fit in, because I feel like he's one of those authors that kind of played around with the format and different styles of writing and stuff. So a poetic short story is probably a good way of saying.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, Annabelle Lee is clearly a poem, and El Dorado is clearly a poem. I have not picked up Black Cat and Pit and the Pendulum in a woefully long time, so I cannot recall word for word what they are, but I know I like the story and I like the reading style. I don't want people to think like I'm making it up and I don't remember. I just have the time to read.
That is enough. I think I have some books where I if you asked me the plot or even the name of the main character, I'd be like, I can't pull that information right now. All I can tell you is that I liked it and it was good. I get like that vibe. I remember the ones I like. Weirdly, I remember more about the books that I really didn't like in terms of
They
content.
feel like a righteous indignation in you when you don't like something. I can rant about books I don't like for hours, and then you just ask me about one of my favorites, and I'm like, yeah, I don't even remember if it's a poem or not.
Yeah, but it's good. It's really good.
But it really spoke to me. I don't remember if it rhymed, but it spoke to me.
Yeah, I love that, and we've got poetry mixed in, we've got classics. I would love to know whether are you staying in this area, or are you going more contemporary with other
I'm gonna
books?
throw you for a loop with my third race once I remember who wrote it. So give me a second. Oh, where? It's literally on the shelf behind me. I know it is because I just picked it up recently. Think it's called The 12 Caesars, The 12 Lives of the Caesars. I cannot find it on my bookcase to save my life, and I don't want to get up and go hunt for it. But Roman history, it's a Roman history book about the 12 Caesars. And like I said earlier, my work was really informed by a love of Greek and Roman history. And I think the stories of Tiberius and Caligula specifically were very interesting. And then Nero as well. They just had a very, very bad, very poisonous family tree, but it's very interesting about how their own insecurities and personal crazies helped crumble the Roman Empire. So yeah, reading about that from like firsthand accounts and everything, I think is really interesting.
So there's the 12 Caesars by Suetonius?
Yes, there we go.
Yes. There is a translated version by Tom Holland, which caught my attention because Tom Holland is a big history guy, which I am quite fond of. I love it whenever he's on like the news because they're like, we need a history guy. Let's get Tom Holland in. That's always fun for me.
My brain went to Tom Holland, the Spider-Man actor.
Yeah, not that Tom
And I
Holland.
was like, what a weird mashup that is. Okay.
I always forget that like they have the exact same name but completely different personalities, ages, and jobs.
Yeah, so I was trying to piece together when he's not Spider-Man and
No,
he's translating, but
no,
okay.
not Mr. Zendaya, no. No, but Lives of the Caesars, I'm really intrigued because I have just finished Rick Riordan's Trials of Apollo series, which is basically, it's like a mishmash of Roman Greek, but it's focused on specifically three emperors, and the big bad is Nero.
Interesting. Okay.
And so I've got like a mishmash of Rick Riordan's interpretation of what Nero was in his modern day equivalent.
Nero was not a great person.
No.
Like, quick overview, he was Caligula's nephew, who he may or may not have had an affair with his mother, but he did marry his stepsister, who was the daughter of his great uncle / stepfather. What was her name? Octavia, who he then murdered and then gave her head to his girlfriend Poppaea, who was a lady of the night in a generous term. And then he killed her and then married a slave boy who he renamed Poppaea and then made him dress up as his dead wife. A real winner all around.
Yeah, as a flavor, a lot of that stuff didn't make it into Rick Riordan's middle grade book, which I feel like it should have.
Yeah, he was also considered historically to be like one of the people who could have been the Antichrist. So he did have a colorful life. He used to dip Christians in tar and then use them as candles for his garden parties.
That was one of the few facts I knew before going into this series.
There you go.
It was on Horrible Histories.
Okay. As an aside, as an American, I feel like Horrible Histories did not make a big enough impression over here. I love Horrible Histories.
Perfect.
I have one of their books, like about Egypt or something. And the only reason I know all of the British kings and queens in order is because of Horrible History. Exactly. I can sing it to myself and be like, this is where we are in history.
My husband literally rolls that out as my party trick of, do you know I can name all of the kings and queens since William the Conqueror because she knows the Horrible History song.
You have to do it, though, to the song.
Yes, I have to.
It's interesting if you just know it. And you're like, oh, yeah, William the Conqueror and his kids, you have to.
Yeah.
I'm William the Conqueror. My enemy stood no chance.
And then I have to remind myself that we don't call King Edward King Ed because, like, it fits the beat of this. Like, he was Edward.
Yeah, I also do that. And I had a straight up test about it, and then I sang it out, and I'm like, yeah, Ed, nope, Edward.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And then you have to add Charles throws it all off now because you have to add him onto the end.
No, I stop at Elizabeth. That's it.
That's it. There
That's
was
where
no
it
more
ends
kings.
to me.
Right, I'm sorry. Again, we got here from 12 seasons.
Yeah,
Yes.
from Rome.
Rotten Romans is a great horrible histories book. There's great information when I learn about like how they fattened up snails to eat using salted milk. It's just, yeah, really great stuff. But I feel like I probably do need to, if I want to call myself an actual classical civilizations nerd, I need to go back to some of the original texts.
To be fair, Rotten Romans is very on point, and the little mouse who holds up the stuff like does quote Suetonius a lot.
Yes. What's he called? Rat. It's like a name that's got rat in it like 3 times. That's basically it.
I didn't know he had a name. I just really enjoyed his little fact side.
Yes. Yeah. Over here, British kids TV like really loves a puppet. Like they love to introduce. They'll just they still to this day just have like actual manned puppet sidekicks with their presenters just on TV. Just cause every kids channel on, especially those run by the BBC, just has puppets because everybody loves puppets, as RuPaul once said. Wow, this is a really off the rails episode. This is way more off the rails than I was expecting it.
That's the energy I bring to things. Is derailing immediately.
I love that. I definitely. Okay, we're on the 4th, I think.
Yeah.
What is the 4th book you'll be taking?
Harry Potter book 6, the Half-Blood Prince.
Why Half-Blood Prince?
Snape is my favorite character. So it's a book named after his own nickname that he gave to himself. And I like the Voldemort flashbacks are fun too. And I like getting to know more about Snape and his little potions habit. Again, you can't see it, but on my other bookshelf, I have a signed Alan Rickman thing. I've got green everywhere. I love myself some Slytherin green.
Alan Rickman did perfect the character. I think it was a pretty good character, but I feel like he made it the iconic character it is with his sort of performance. He's just
he's 30 years too old to be Snape and unconventionally attractive, but still like attractive in a weird way. So he's not Snape at all. But in my brain, I'm like, I can't divorce the two. I'm like, yes, that's Snape, obviously.
It's the voice that does it for me. Like I can't. Right. It's just that's the voice. Yeah.
I picture a young Alan Rickman when he was in the show, The Barchester Chronicles, as Obadiah Slope, the evil priest. And I'm like, yeah, that's Snape. It's the same voice, but at least he's more age accurate in that than he is actually in the movies.
I think a lot of like the people I grew up with like really knew Alan Rickman as like the Sheriff of Nottingham from like Robin Hood. So that was their big like headcanon for him, but I only ever knew him as Harry Potter. I'm quite sad I've not been able to revisit Harry Potter since 2020 when J.K. Rowling had all of the controversy, just because I think it's a fear that because I had a lot of, it was entwined with a lot of my childhood as well. And then I think I almost don't want the memories that I associate with that to be tarred by rereading them and not enjoying them in the same way. I think I do want to eventually get round to it, but it's just one of those things where I've just not been able to get there yet.
I've divorced myself from the entire Potter fandom. Like I used to make a lot of Harry Potter related like YouTube things, and I even had to post a video, and I was like, I can't be involved in this because it's become, even if you removed Rowling from the equation, the fans of it have become so embroiled in everything has to be a fight.
Yeah.
And I just want to enjoy magic and whimsy and not have to fight people because I like, especially anytime you say you like Snape, everybody was like, you're a bigot. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. They're wizards.
They're also fictional characters, but yes.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. You're crazy. He's a very nuanced, subtle character in a fictional world of non-nuanced characters. Like him and Dumbledore are the most interesting two people because you never really know whose side they're actually on. Like the more you read it as an adult, you're like, oh, Dumbledore's a bad person. But because it's from Harry's perspective, you get for the most part a very untarnished version of that. So when you're reading it as a kid, it is very black and white. So I think I like the Potter series because as a kid, I liked the magic and whimsy. And then as an adult, I like the subtleties and nuance, and I like also the magic and whimsy. But
I
yes,
think
book 6.
Yeah, definitely. They're case studies in how people take their childhood trauma into their adulthood and never really leave it behind,
Exactly. It's like,
basically.
calm down. Like,
Yeah.
I'm all grown. Like, I'm in
It's
my 30. I'm
yeah,
not going to fight you over Harry Potter.
there are bigger things to fight in the world, definitely. Yeah, it is a tough one. I feel like there's a lot of book fandoms and just fandoms in general out there that kind of ruin it for me. I feel that way about Star Wars and like Rick and Morty and like the things that I actually like enjoy. I enjoy the products themselves, but I don't feel like I can engage with them the same way as like a fan because the fandoms have become so toxic in themselves.
I just now I have the biggest question. I couldn't care less about Star Wars, but what is there to fight about of Rick and Morty?
I don't know whether it's necessarily like fighting over Rick and Morty itself. It's that like the people who get really intense about Rick and Morty on the internet tend to do things that like I don't think are like good. I can't like I suppose like giving people abuse over the internet about the fact that Szechuan sauce doesn't exist at McDonald's. Like it's one of those things where I'm like, you are taking something that is fun too far.
That's like my hot take on Rick and Morty. The Szechuan sauce isn't good.
Yeah.
I waited for 2 hours to get Szechuan sauce when it came back out. It was not good.
No, and it's just one of those things where it's like I find it funny, but I feel like people have taken almost the wrong messages from it and idolize the wrong characters from it and don't take if there are lessons to be learned from Rick and Morty, which I would argue probably not because it's just like it's an adult cartoon that's supposed to be edgy and funny. They've just like taken the wrong messages from it, made it part of their personality and used it as an excuse to be toxic in a way that I'm like, no.
Yeah, no, I could totally see that. The more I'm thinking about Rick and Morty, I'm like, oh yeah, I could see exactly where that went wrong.
Yeah, but my husband likes to say that I'm a Jerry, so, which I don't like because I don't think any of them are purely good characters in any way.
I mean, I'm definitely, I would aspire to be a Rick. I am a Morty. Like, I have to be dragged along to things. I'm nervous. I don't want to be there when I am there. And I'm like, oh God, what's happening? I don't want to do this.
Yeah, very that. But yeah, I definitely see that being something that would also like impact the Harry Potter fandom. So yeah, just one of those things. I think nothing can stay the same forever. And if you can hold on to the things that you enjoy about things, then it's no harm in finding more enjoyment in the world. God knows people need it.
Such desire to quote, what was it? The Outsiders when you said nothing good can last. So it's like, stay gold, pony boy. The first thing that came to mind, I read too much when that's immediately, it's like, yeah, stay gold, pony boy. It's okay.
Oh, I'm going to have to slip that into like the social media coverage somehow of this episode. Okay, that was the penultimate book, the fourth pick. What is the last book you'll be taking with you?
I feel like I should have had this prepared. My last book. I'm going to go with, because I own it, so I know it's a real book, and I'm not making this one up like my Poe answer. The novelization of Pan's Labyrinth by Guillermo del Toro.
Okay, tell me more. Pan's Labyrinth is one of those things that I very nearly accidentally watched when I was actually looking for the labyrinth starring David Bowie, but Scott.
Yeah, okay, first off, different vibes. Big Bowie fan, so either choice would have been fine by me personally. We can watch both at my cabin in the Ozarks. Yeah, Pan's Labyrinth is like during the, I think it's not the Spanish Civil War, maybe it is, Franco Spain. And this little girl and her pregnant mother are going to live with the mother's new husband, and the little girl's father has died, Ophelia. And they're like in this big manor type house in the woods in Spain, and he's got his soldiers and everything. And he's not very nice to her, and the mother's very sickly, and he's very worried that she'll die before she gives birth, and he hopes it will be a son, and he's all messed up. And it's like escapism, but you don't know if the magical world that Ophelia has discovered is real or not. Like, it could go either way. It's up to interpretation, and I like that. And I like that the whimsical, fantastical world she stumbles into and that she's princess of is, like, low-key terrifying. It's not like a wholesome son we're riding broomsticks. It's like this man has eyeballs on his hands and he will eat you. So I appreciate that. There's the character of the fawn, who greatly inspired a character in my book because I really liked Pan's Labyrinth even when I was young. And I'm going to stick with saying it's delightfully creepy. And I think I really liked that aesthetic, like that dark, brooding, weird. I liked Tim Burton, so that should inform everything. So when the novelization came out, I had to buy it and read it. And I really liked the book too.
Ah, it sounds like terrifying Narnia or something like
Yeah, it's if Narnia wasn't a good time and there's no Santa Claus, there's only like misery and you're not gonna live.
Yeah, that sounds very Tim Burton. My son is developing into a Tim Burton kid, so
I love it. I absolutely love that. It's awesome.
Knows all the words to Nightmare Before Christmas. I have seen that film approximately 1,000 times.
It was when I lived with my best friend. We lived together for almost 5 years, and it was like tradition in our house. It was like, Halloween comes, this is Halloween. Christmas time, what's this? And those were the only two songs we would ever play. Like, we had no interest in the movie. The movie itself, when you really cut it down to bare text, you're like, this doesn't even make sense. No. Those songs are wonderful, though.
Yeah, it's one of those, I mean, he loves all of the songs, but it's one of those where, like, when I eventually watched it and I watched it, like, in fine detail, I was kind of like, it's really explained what Jack's motivation is here. And I can't tell if, and we were watching it and my husband was trying to parse some meaning from it. And I was like, it's either Christmas is for everyone and you can celebrate things however you want to celebrate them, or cultural appropriation is bad, but I can't decide which one.
Okay, yeah, I didn't even interpret it that way. I was more focused on, are we not going to talk about the fact that Sally perpetually is drugging her father to escape her abusive household and then, like, almost willingly goes back every day? And she's like, oh, I'm back here. And you're like, no, Sally, run away.
Yeah, I only learned like this year that it was made with stop motion animation, which sounds like a ridiculous thing not to realize straight away, but I've not clocked that it was that for some reason. And I have no idea why.
Interesting miss. But yeah, that again wouldn't be even the thing that I focused on the most. There's a lot going on in that movie.
It sounds like Pan's Labyrinth sounds like it's definitely got some of the same vibes, because there's some of the background characters in Nightmare Before Christmas. I'm like, this is a film kids are encouraged to watch. And that is in the background of it. Like, that is terrifying. There's not a single cute character except for Zero in the entire film.
That's true. That is very true. Yeah, Pan's Labyrinth, I don't know if I would let like a small child watch.
No, I'm worried. I feel like I could watch it.
Yeah, it's one of those. I wouldn't discourage if I had a kid letting them watch it, but I would also watch it with them and be like, with the context that they are in a war, it's probably, don't expect it to be a happy time for anybody. And it's like brutal in some, you're like, oh, that's rough. But it's a really good film. And if I'm stuck in my cabin and I don't have access to my TV, I would be more than happy to have the novelization with me.
Is it a true to the original?
Yeah, I would say it's pretty on par.
That's good. So it's a good substitute if you want to read it and immerse yourself in the story in a different way.
If you want the same story and vibes.
Sounds great. Was this a difficult list for you to put together?
I think so, yeah, because there's just so many things that I think would be like, oh, if I was in this mood, what would I want to read? Or this mood, right? Yeah, parsing it out and figuring out overall what would I be happy with if I had just 5 stories to read repeatedly. I'm assuming that in my hypothetical cabin, I haven't lost my memory, so I do know what happens in books 1 through 5 of Harry Potter. So having just 6 with me would be okay.
You'll still have your memory, so yeah, great thing. I love that, like, the vibes are really good on all things. If you wouldn't mind, could you recap all 5 of your thingy just to remind them?
Yeah, we had Great Gatsby, a fictional version of Poe's collection that only had my 3 favorites in it and none of the other stuff I don't care about. 3 was Suetonius's The Lives of the Caesars. 4 was Harry Potter 6, Half-Blood Prince. And 5 was the one Pan's Labyrinth.
Is there any books that you very much almost picked and put in the 5? Or was that was always going to be the list?
I think I struggled to leave Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. I think leaving that off was a little hard because I also do have an entire shelf just dedicated to Alice in Wonderland. So I think that was a hard miss, but it was a replacement with Pan's Labyrinth.
I feel like I have a full like image of all of the things that you love in the world based on this list and
If
some
it's
of
like
the
dark
tangents.
and unhinged or about Rome, I am here for it.
I love, because you've even got listeners again, because you've got the stripes, you've got Beetlejuice stripes.
Yeah, okay, so
And
Beetlejuice was my favorite childhood movie. I'm not gonna lie, I was like obsessed with it, and I still love Beetlejuice. And I, on the daily, when I am cleaning, will obviously put on Jump in the Line, the closing song from Beetlejuice, because it's just wonderful. So yeah, I have far too many black and white striped shirts. Like I said, my goal is for the Hot Topic kids to find my books. So I need to look
yes,
like I could wander right into a Hot Topic at any moment.
you have definitely got those vibes absolutely all the way down. So yeah, I'm very mission accomplished, definitely.
Thank you. Thank you. I tried to upscale it because now I'm a grown adult, so it's professional Hot
You
Topic.
you look like very professional, like Beetlejuice light off to a. It's like one of those, you know, those like niche reference merch that people get where you're like, oh, people who know will know, but this also passes off as a completely valid like regular
Exactly.
outfit.
That's my wardrobe. That is my aspiration with my clothing, is that people will get where I'm coming from, but like the casual observer will just be like, yeah, she likes stripes and black. It's fine.
Great. If people want to hear more book recommendations, things that you love, follow the journey of your book series as it comes out and buy the books, where can they find you? Where they can they find your work?
If you want to figure out what I'm doing in my life alongside me, because yeah, I'm still working on it, you can follow me on Instagram at brooklyn.quintana. I'm on TikTok a lot. I post a lot of book related content, updates, and then occasionally I give book recommendations or like the random motivational talk when I feel like it. And I'm the Brooklyn Q. And I'm on YouTube at Brooklyn Q as well. I don't post too much long form stuff there, but more like shorts as well. The book is available on Amazon Prime and Barnes & Noble online and most online book retailers. And you can go to brooklynquintana.com for updates on events I'm going to, more podcasts that I've been on, and links to buy the books there as well.
Fantastic. And I will include links and usernames all in the podcast description so that people can find them super easy and click through and find all that good stuff. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. This has been really fun.
I have had an absolute ball of a time. I always have fun recording, but like the tangents have been really like out there. I love it. I love a good tangent. So it's been great. If listeners want to find the podcast on social media, we're at Books to Last Pod on Instagram, and you can find it wherever good podcasts are found. And yeah, subscribe, recommend it to someone who might love it too. Leave a review if you've got some time. And yeah, listeners, thank you so much for listening, Brooklyn. Thank you so much for coming on. I've had such a good time. And until next time, bye for now.